I'm going to send you a great GIF. It's the best image ever. It just displays the Internet of Things so well. It's just this picture of a Furby with like a debugging text scrolling through its eyes because it's been hacked. It's the most dystopian image ever. It's fantastic. And then someone hacked the Furby to start spouting like Trump speeches. It was terrifying. It was absolutely horrible. So it was like waddling about going, oh man, oh, it really horrifies me. Yeah, we should open with a Furby. My interest in hacking and computers at large came from curiosity. Looking at this amazing device, this window into this beautiful kind of utopian, strange space that was so different to real life, trying to figure out why this piece of software loaded. There's noise your hard drive is making, why is it whirring like that? But when I load this, why is it making this other noise with the needle? Which lends itself really nicely to hacking, as it's essentially what it is, deconstructing things, putting it back together, finding flaws in it, improving upon it. I think that people around me just thought I was playing games. I didn't mention the hacking stuff for two reasons. One, it would be bad operational security of me, and two, I didn't know how to.
I think my role is really important because young people in the UK have excellent technical skills. They're coming out of university, they're coming out of school. It's built into everything they do. Some of them have excellent career paths ahead of them, but they are at risk of getting into cybercrime. My job's important because we need to make sure they make that choice. They understand that cybercrime is illegal and there are consequences, and they go on and use those excellent skills for lawful reasons to help the government, to help law enforcement, and to potentially make lots of money for private industry as well.
When I was 15, 16, I first started hearing about WikiLeaks. I was massively inspired as a teenager at the time, with little else going on, that this stuff was amazing, that they were using this thing that I love, and I'd grown up with the internet, and so carefree and so anonymously, and I thought it was quite pure use of the net, and so I got involved in anonymous-based chat rooms. PayPal, Visa and MasterCard famously withdrew donations to WikiLeaks, and Anonymous were up in arms about it, and there were DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks on PayPal and Visa MasterCard's websites. There was this online chat room. I'd never seen anything quite like it. At least 8,000 people in an internet relay chat, so super old school hacking channel.
It does create a powerful community that people want to be part of. And it's true that I think young people see that and believe in that vision, and want to do it for the greater good.
We moved to taking down government websites in countries like Tunisia, Zimbabwe, Egypt during the Arab Spring. The Egyptian government shut down the entire internet for the whole country, which was 2 internet service providers, but they left their own dial-up connection to contact each other, and so Anonymous reverse engineered their dial-up so that everyone could start using it.
Dear citizens of the world, the time for truth has arrived, a time for freedom and transparency, a time for people to express themselves freely and to be heard from anywhere across the world. The Tunisian government has made itself an enemy of Anonymous.
So at that point it was all about letting people know that the internet can support you. If you're in a situation or a place where your access to outside support can be taken out in this sort of psychological warfare where you're made to feel isolated, that someone, even a mysterious stranger that you don't even need to know who they are and they don't want you to know, and that's the important bit of it, will help you out.
For the last 7 years, my major research project has been to investigate the CIA's programme for the rendition, detention and interrogation of terror suspects. This was highly secretive. It operated between 2001 and 2010, and it involved the secret kidnap of particular individuals, usually from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, their transfer into secret prisons in a number of sites around the world, and the torture of many of them, ostensibly to secure intelligence. The reason the programme was exposed was that in around 2004, a couple of journalists in the US were alerted to the fact that there were these private jets flying around and stopping off in particular locations on a regular basis. So often they would leave an airfield in the US, they would fly to Langley, which is where the CIA is headquartered, and then they would fly on often to Western Europe to refuel, on to countries in the Middle East where they might pick up prisoners. They would often then stop at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan to deliver prisoners to a secret CIA prison site there. The flight might then fly back through Europe and on to Guantanamo Bay, where they might drop off prisoners, and then back to the US. A crucial source of information for us was leaked information. And so there's several leaks over the course of the War on Terror that have been really, really important for our work. One is the WikiLeaks files, both around the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, and then also the Iraq war logs. Another really significant leak was from the International Committee of the Red Cross. Someone in the ICRC did leak a 40-page report about the abuse of prisoners in Guantanamo Bay.
Now, during past shows, we've told you about and even spoken to members of the hacktivist group Anonymous. But now there's a new group to keep your eye on. They're called LulzSec.
Things got a little bit out of hand after we started our own splinter group called Lulz Security, where we became a little bit more satirical with the hacking, a little bit more reckless. Our imagery moved from the anonymous mask and we do not forgive, we do not forget, all of the classic slogans, to a man in a top hat with a cat flying through space as the logo. The most absurd imagery we could find, and we would act in the most absurd way.
Now, when you hear the words LulzSec, you can't help but ask, what will they do next?
The X Factor database was leaked from the Fox network. It was a classic example of information has been exfiltrated. You can just release it online, you can try and sell it, etc. But what if this absurd database was just put up with a big anti-Simon Cowell message, but him hitting a buzzer? It was one of our stupid 17-year-old ideas of trying to be artsy, but forgetting what it actually was we were releasing.
They have to think about the risks to particular individuals if they publish this information, not just themselves, not just governments, but crucially the sources, or those people who might be named in documents who are put at risk by this kind of thing. And of course, the sort of serious news industry and serious investigative journalism has a really long track record of doing this properly. So protecting sources, making sure that when information is disseminated in the public domain, it's curated properly so that a narrative is given that tries to demonstrate the limitations of this kind of information, what it can tell us and what it can't tell us.
We would, hack the Sun newspaper's website and replace it with fake stories during the phone hacking scandal and try and make it a little bit more political again. After the first few targets, people started picking up on it, and then we spiraled a bit out of control.
And the group says it was just a warm-up for their bigger hit, FBI-affiliated sites.
Here's to LulzSec. The CIA's website was down yesterday, and they took credit with a tweet that said, "Tango down, CIA.gov for the lulz."
Hacks started happening very fast. I think we ran into too much information too fast. The internet was very insecure then, and it still is a bit, but it was extremely insecure. Every second thing we checked, we could probably take over.
People, no matter on their age, and sometimes their vulnerability, even they will be arrested if they have committed offences.
As we saw with Jake.
As we saw with Jake.
Now, this afternoon, reports were flying out of the UK when Scotland Yard announced they'd captured the spokesman for the hacking group LulzSec.
18-year-old Jake Davis was allegedly involved with the hacking group LulzSec.
Now, according to the Associated Press, a 19-year-old who goes by the nickname Topiary was arrested in Scotland's Shetland Islands.
I was living on my own at the time. My mother and my brother had moved to a town in England, so I was still in the Shetland Islands. Knock on the door, 6 plainclothes officers standing there.
In a press release from Metro Police, it states the man arrested is believed to be linked to an ongoing international investigation into the criminal activity of the so-called hacktivist groups Anonymous and LulzSec.
Pushed me back up against the wall. They flooded in, confiscated the computer, started typing away to see what they could get while it was still live and fresh. All of my belongings were put into little trolleys and taken to the local airport on Shetland, the one local airport with the one runway and the one little plane. So I was put on a 4-seater Learjet with these 3 other officers, and we all just sat kind of awkwardly, 2 facing forward, 2 facing back, just on this flight straight to London.
You know, some of the research we've done about pathways into cybercrime, we've spoken to some of the other members of LulzSec. We've met Jake on a number of occasions. I think it's important to say that the hacking community, although it's influential, you can still be a white hat and have a great career and be part of that community and get behind that cause, but you just do it in a legal and responsible way.
Do you want me to explain the stickers? Oh, that would be perfect. All right, well, that's great. I've never been asked that before.
I've made my own stickers before. This one is mine, Cyber Sun Tzu. I run a Twitter account called Sun Tzu Sec, which is essentially Sun Tzu quotes, but made hackery. Like if you wait on a Tor exit node long enough, the traffic of your enemies will float by. That kind of nonsense. My good friend Larry Love is facing extradition to the States at the moment for allegedly hacking into US government-based computers, although they've supplied no evidence against him.
Coming down with a full force of the law and threatening extraditions and extremely long sentences, under espionage charges, is intended as a deterrent. And I think in the case of, British citizens who may be threatened with that, the British government does have a responsibility to protect them and to ensure that they are properly legally represented, and that if there is anything dodgy going on in terms of the terms of the extradition or the evidence that they are being presented with, then they need to be scrutinising that carefully. Their duty should be to their citizens first and foremost.
We deliver things called cease and desist visits, and that is basically a knock on the door. We've used intelligence to identified someone who may be getting into cybercrime. They may have bought a low-level hacking tool. They may have been on a DDoS site and used one of those sites. They may have used a remote access Trojan. We will work with local police forces and our regional organised crime unit partners to identify them, give them a knock on the door and a warning, and it can be a strong warning. Speak to their parents as well, sometimes even seize their computers at that point, to make sure that they understand that they are at risk of getting into something they don't want to do, and get them to understand how they can use their skills in a positive way.
After this whole thing sort of settled down and I was released on bail, the police tried to put me straight into prison to say I was a threat to national security. I shouldn't be allowed out on the streets or whatever. My mum, I think, she'd heard about the hacking bit, and I think she was happy or relieved and maybe a tiny bit proud in a way that it was politically motivated hacking for good, and I wasn't out there defrauding people or doing the kind of things that the more black hat hackers do.
I don't think illegal hacking can be justified. It's against the law. The law is clear in the UK and it's clear in other countries as well. Really, they should leave those types of operations or those types of activities online to the experts, to law enforcement, to government officials, because illegal hacking, it's written that way. It is illegal, and it shouldn't be done because you're breaking a law. Simple.
For me, contemporary hackers are doing something that has been done for a long time. They're trying to expose the lies that governments tell about really big questions, and questions that affect human rights, that affect foreign policy, that have the potential to cause wars. So for me, someone like Jake, if his motives, or if the motives of hackers, is to try and find out what governments are doing in our names that may breach international conventions and international law, then I think they do have an important role to play in exposing some of those dirty state secrets that the states don't want us to find out about.
All right, so you can just scramble up the cube. There couple of kinds of relief when I was arrested. The first kind was, now I don't need to maintain this alias anymore. I don't need to maintain this paranoia because it's been taken away from me. It's literally been, I can never access that again now. And that sort of sunk in. I'm massively regretful of some of the lulsec stuff we got really out of hand. But I still think there's a place online for some sort of hacktivism that doesn't breach so many laws, but still maintains this idea of freedom and the fact that online you can have this unknown collective of anyone and everyone. I think it's beautiful.
I don't think hackers and governments can collaborate. The whole point is that governments want to hide these sorts of activities where they're playing fast and loose with the law, and so I can't really imagine a situation where they would want to cooperate with hackers. I think where we can work with governments is to try and encourage greater transparency about what they're doing in the first place.
Our job is really challenging to try and divert young people away. It's a really difficult role that we have. That community that is created online is a powerful influencer, but young people don't always get into it for the money, so that isn't always an influence at the beginning. But I do think that there's lots of really cool things that young people can get into and do, and that will really pique their curiosity and give them a challenge that isn't necessarily breaking the law.
We just need hackers to be involved in the security process beforehand, just to basically say, you know that I would probably do this if I managed to hack you. And the company goes, oh, we didn't think of that. We didn't think anyone would consider this an attack vector. So sometimes it's as simple as just going to hackers beforehand and going, how would you break my software? How would you break my item? And then fixing it from there. So let's say we're in a coffee shop called X Coffee. And one thing that works extremely well, if I had your phone number from open source intelligence online, if I managed to get it. People are very public with their phone numbers and email addresses. You can usually just find someone's phone number. They don't consider it an attack vector. I could send you a message from X Coffee, or appearing to be from X Coffee, that would say something like, you've won a free coffee, click here. Now I'm just hacking in progress. The longest part of this process is just typing the message I'm going to send you. And you should have just received a message from X Coffee. So let's say that link didn't go to an image of a cat and it went to a malicious URL that contains some code that would take control of certain browsers or execute certain code, or if it downloaded an executable file and you opened it with the phone. It relies on a small amount of human error, but if their browser is slightly out of date or they're using certain types of out-of-date software and operating systems, and many people are, when they get that message that says update your operating system, seriously, it's a security feature, do it now, they're going, tomorrow it's going to take like 9 hours. And after a while, exploits build up for that kind of outdated stuff. If you're thinking of the Internet of Things, or not even the Internet of Home Appliances, but smart cities, critical city infrastructure connected to the Internet, where you're looking at Internet-enabled bins that will tell the council when they're full, so they know when to be emptied. It's a clever idea, but once you create something and then just give it an IP address and not really think about security, it can usually be used as an attack vector. But people think, what can a bin do? So you have access to a bin, you can just tell the council to empty someone's bin nefariously. But if that bin sends data back to the council, presumably it sends it back to quite a nice council computer that has a lot of information on it. So from the bin, you might be able to spread your way over there and essentially take over everything in the city that's connected.
I would love young men and women who have these technical skills. I'd love them working for the National Cybercrime Unit. You know, we need technically skilled individuals to come and work for us and to stop cybercrime from impacting the UK and make the UK the safest place to do business that there is in the world. I'd also love young people to go and use their technical skills in the cybersecurity industry. There's some really interesting roles that young people can get into, particularly around ethical hacking or coding, that can be really interesting, can provide a really good career path, and ultimately can make them some good money as well.
I do bounty hunting on Saturdays and Sundays when I'm in my house in my pants listening to music. A few years ago, it was a real grey area. If you hacked a company and told them about it, there was still a chance they could prosecute you. And so my advice then would be just don't take the risk. And I think now that's changed quite a bit. So I always say to people, download all the tools, all the hacking tools, all the hacking suites, you know, the Kali Linuxes and the operating systems that are designed to be penetration testing tools. And if you're going to target something, it's all about who you target. If you're going to target Twitter, for example, you need to read what Twitter has said in their security policy, and that can usually be found by just Googling Twitter security policy or Twitter bug bounty program. Read all their documentation, and they'll say something like, we respect hackers that find bugs in our system. You may attack us within these parameters. If you do find a breach, please don't make it public, etc., etc. And each company has an individual guideline, so I just recommend getting all the tools, learning how they work. But if you're going to test them on your own computers, which is not illegal, or set up kind of honeypots for yourself, but don't test these tools to hone your skills on random websites. However, if a company has a really good security protocol, which is, the best one is hack us completely and then tell us, and then you can do whatever you like to them, essentially. As long as once you make that breach itself, you responsibly and ethically disclose it. It could be a 10-year-old in their mum's basement that manages to discover an attack vector that you have no idea about, that no one's ever even conceived of before. And so open sourcing that and allowing anyone in the world to just take a stab at a company and for them to say, fine, we'll pay you. So much more is patched because of that.